Alright, so this is Ordinary Madness, episode 68. I am Steve Barker, and with me today is writer and publisher of PageBoy Magazine, Thomas Walton. And so before we start talking, he's just going to read us a poem. So, whenever you're ready.
Alright. The word or words. I wonder what I should do now, I wondered. Deflowering the field with what I hoped were flowers, defiling with love and lines. The park today was autumn gray. All the leaves were gowns. A swoon of worse in rows or piled against the amphitheater wall. I let them lie, remembering the sleeping dogs, as if I had any say in the matter. As if my only role here were to disturb or to defraud the breeze or season, and no amount of stillness, no attention to breath, no tread light enough could make of me part of it. Leaf of leaves, cloud of clouds, word of words. So I left to join the other city dwellers gnawing on the hill.
Right on. Thank you.
Right on.
So PageBoy, the journal that you're the publisher of, just released the 7th issue, correct?
It's true.
And so you started this. This is one of those journals that's been around for a while that I've been hearing about. Gone to a couple of your release parties. So you started this like 5-6 years ago.
It's a biannual, so it comes out twice a year, and it's the 7th issue, so it's on like its 10th year actually.
Oh wow!
Because we're way behind schedule.
Yeah. But like so many journals, that's kind of what happens, and usually that's when the publisher says, "Fuck this! This is too much work."
Yeah.
I a long time ago, made the attempt of starting a journal, and we got to issue 5. It's too much work. This is a thankless endeavor. Let's quit. And that, to me, it seems like that happens to a lot of journals.
Yeah.
So what keeps you going?
What keeps me going? What keeps me going is, I don't know. I feel like I'm in Seattle right now, and I feel pretty solid here. So I want to have something to do here, and I want to have like a community here. So this is like a nice, like the magazine is a nice fire to gather around, if you will.
Yeah. So are you from Seattle?
No, I'm from Milwaukee originally. Yeah.
Okay.
But I've been here almost 20 years, off and on.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What brought you to Seattle?
No, I was living in New Orleans at the time. I was 20, and I met Kurt Cobain had just died.
Yeah.
And my girlfriend at the time played bass, and she was like, "Oh my God, Kurt Cobain just died. We have to go to Seattle." And I was like, "Who's Kurt Cobain?"
Oh, no way.
Yeah, totally.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, shit, you're going to get kicked out of Seattle.
So, anyways, I was like, she was like, "Come on, we're leaving." And I was like, "Okay, sure." So we came to Seattle, and we got here. She left me. I stayed. I think she left Seattle too. I don't know. That was a long time ago. But now I know who Kurt Cobain is.
Yeah. So that must have been like 96? No.
94, I think.
Or 94.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was
3 or 4.
Yeah. And then so were you in school? Were you like writing, and like when you were in New Orleans, were you writing or?
No, I was a street kid there. I was just hanging out on the street and like playing music on the street for money and like squatting places and just having a good time.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
So is that I didn't know, and like I said, so you're one of those people who I've seen around probably I've been here for 10 years. I always see you at readings. We haven't really talked much, and then I ran into you New Year's Eve, and I feel like I've run into you like 10 times since then, which seems to be how it happens in Seattle. But that's fascinating. How were you, like, after high school? You just took off, and how did becoming a street kid start?
I went to high school in southern Indiana, which is pretty vapid culturally. So I felt pretty empty myself. So I got like claustrophobic there, and as soon as I graduated, I just ran as fast and as far as I could.
Wow.
So I traveled around like hitchhiking and hopping freight trains and stuff, but I always went back to New Orleans because New Orleans was just like I just felt like you could do anything you wanted to there, and it was pretty friendly, like to homeless people or street kids or whatever.
Yeah.
The weather was good, and people were partying all the time, so you kind of just got lost in the shadows there.
Yeah. And what type of music were you playing?
At the time, I play guitar now, but at the time, I just had a harmonica, and I was like blowing the harmonica, and I had friends who were playing other instruments. It was pretty bad. But, you just needed enough money for like a bottle of wine, so...
Right.
So we got by, so to speak.
Yeah. While you were playing music, did any of that involve writing lyrics?
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I was writing like poetry and songs at the time already, like from when I was like in my early teens.
Yeah. And then so you come up here. Kurt Cobain's died. And then is that when you kind of thought about taking writing a little more seriously, or?
No, I always took it really seriously. What happened here? I mean, I don't know. I just kind of... No.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I mean, that was not the... I lived here for a little while, and then I went, like, overseas for a while, too. So, like, a lot of other things kind of happened before I ended up like settling down, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And that really has happened because I have a 9-year-old daughter, so that's really grounded me and kind of kept me in the same locale.
So is that kind of when you were settled down, so to speak, is when you had your daughter?
Yeah, I would say yes, definitely.
Right on. So when you went overseas, how does a street kid, I'm assuming you probably didn't have a lot of money, how do you, get the plane ticket, and then, like, where'd you go?
I did like a work program in Australia for a year.
Oh, right.
And just did like, you just work on like a farm, and then they let you stay there for free, and kind of you just learn to pick, you learn a skill, or you just do odd jobs or whatever. You just make it work.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Cool. So I guess, if your daughter's 9, I guess there's 9 months before, and PageBoy is 10 years old.
Uh-huh.
So is that like, you're okay, settling down?
Yeah.
Why not start a literary journal?
Yeah. Because I actually had a journal. I went to Evergreen in Olympia and had a journal in Olympia, like in the early, like around 2000, late 90s era. And then I went traveling, and then when I got back to Seattle, I realized I was gonna be here for a while, and so I just was kind of like, okay, well, I'm like stable enough now to start another magazine. And I realize now you don't really need to be stable with your actual life, like, because you can have a virtual, reality and virtual magazine.
Yeah.
And be traveling around, but I feel when I started this it was still really wasn't, that culture wasn't really happening yet. I don't feel like.
Yeah. Well, and you've made the decision to continue, print when I think a lot of journals now, are online, I guess, just because it's cheaper and probably more accessible to get it out there.
Yes.
So why, I think I love the print journal and I hope they never go away.
Yeah.
But, someone might ask why still print when it's...
Yeah, I don't, because I'm crazy, it's just like, I don't know, maybe it's just a romantic, appreciation of the, book and the book as artifact and thing in the world that I really love and am willing to, put the money into.
Yeah, well, and it should say that I'm looking at the journal right now, and I've seen it before, and it's a piece of art where, especially the nice, cover, if I was looking at that, just online scrolling through, I don't think I would, you're not as connected, I guess. But yeah, it's really nice. So this is 7, and have you kind of been doing this solo the whole time? Are you main editor, main reader, all that?
Yeah, I have people that help me do some reading for me, especially when it's friends of mine send me stuff, because I don't like to be involved in that decision if I can help it. You don't want to be biased because you're this is my buddy, I might just... Right.
Okay,
exactly.
That makes sense.
Or if I don't like my buddy's work, then I don't want to be rejecting
right.
him or her. That's awkward.
Yeah.
And that's definitely the worst part of this is the enemies that unfortunately I've made just by having a subjective idea of what a solid piece of literature is.
Enemies in the sense that a friend of yours has submitted and got rejected and took that personally?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Oh, that's
definitely
fucked up.
Definitely.
I've plenty of friends of mine have rejected me, and that just makes me think I got to do better, because I had a leg above the competition and it didn't get in, so that means there's something wrong with me.
Back to work. Yeah, feelings get hurt for sure, and then when people's feelings are hurt, they don't always make the best decisions. But yeah, for other than that, I do most of the editing and distributing and you name it, the graphic work too, which I this is the work of Ann Petty. Each issue is devoted to a single visual artist. So this issue 7 is Ann Petty, and I gather the material and do the layout and stuff, which I had to teach myself. So the first, I don't know if you've seen the first issue, even the first couple, you can definitely see that I'm still learning how to do it.
Yeah. We're using InDesign or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a difficult program, especially if you don't have somebody kind of telling you
Yeah.
how it works.
It took a while. And then because so much time happened between each issue, I had to relearn it all again, because I would forget, because I wasn't working with it every day.
Right.
Even now when I take it to the printer, the woman who does the layout there, she'll kind of advise me on shortcuts and everything, and what I do in 3 hours, it takes her 5 minutes.
Oh wow.
So whatever.
And was there, because I remember reading Paul Constant gave you a really good review a couple of years ago, and I remember reading that, but was it because I was surprised, because I went to the last reading and it said it was issue 7, but were you in issue 13 a while ago or something along those lines?
That would have been 2013. It must have been 5.
Okay. I got totally confused, but that's when I I'd heard about the journal. I think I actually may have submitted to one of the journals and got rejected, and I don't take it personally. Especially if it was like 4 or 5 years ago. I'm sure I submitted some awful shit, so definitely deserved to be rejected. But yeah,
that was probably one of the other editors who reads for me. Yeah, definitely.
No, I'm sure
Is that a gun that you have?
It was probably a short story that was probably really bad. So I'm probably thankful that it's not out in the world right now because it's probably
that is one of the pitfalls of publishing, and this whole splintering of the online journals. I feel like it's pretty easy to get published. You know, now because there are so many avenues, but I definitely have been in a situation where I've published some of my work and then gotten the journal in the mail or like seen it online and just kind of thought, oh my god, and had to sort of rein myself in and be a better critical reader of my own work.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. When I moved here in 2004, and that seems like all of a sudden, because it was so easy to have online journals, every writer also had an online journal.
Yeah.
And I was writing a lot of poetry then that I wasn't even really revising. I was just, writing it and sending it out and getting publication credits. And then now, like, thankfully a lot of those, like, the URLs are dead, but there's still a couple poems of mine out there on the internet that I hope nobody ever comes across them because they're just not very good. But I guess, with doing your journal, not putting something out, every month gives you the opportunity to, make sure everything's quality. So with, you have the help of readers, but what's kind of, like, is there something you're looking for, or you just want good work, or like when do you have a process or anything when you're reading stuff, or are you just looking for something that you think is good?
That's a difficult question to answer, of course, because some of it is just a visceral response. But I feel like I like to think that I will print I'm looking for evidence that the writer, if I can see this, the writer is dedicated or devoted to writing. And if I can sense that, it doesn't really matter if I like it, quote unquote. And I try to print things that are challenging, that I feel like might challenge like a readership as well, that I might not necessarily like, but they ask questions that are interesting to discuss. So I definitely, it's definitely not a like I don't publish language poetry or I don't publish spoken word, like that. It's not like that.
Yeah.
I feel like I think of the magazine as being descriptive as opposed to prescriptive. Like I want to document what's being done in the community of writers, and then also ask questions of both the community of writers and the community at large, if possible.
Yeah. Would you say that it's majority Northwest writers, or is it from...
It is now. It has been. And I like it that way, but somebody listed it on Duotrope, which is like, do you know that? Yeah. So like just in the last like couple months, I'm getting stuff from all over the world, and it's a little bit overwhelming. So at present I'm trying to figure out how to navigate like the enormous influx of submissions that I recently found myself buried beneath.
Yeah, how do you deal with that if so the next issue probably be another year or something, right? Or
it's gonna be in 6 months.
Or
Steve.
all right, 6 months. But so do you close your submissions at all, or for the next 6 months?
Yeah.
Like, are you just gonna have one day you're gonna be like, holy shit, I got 500 submissions I need to go through?
I hope not. I hope that's not gonna happen. No, I try to every few days or every couple weeks I try to read a few. I don't like it's too difficult to like spend one day reading 500 submissions. They just all start to sound the same.
Yeah, totally.
So I try to read them when I first get them, and then sometimes I can eliminate them really quickly.
Right.
Like if there's some, I don't know. Sometimes you just know that.
Well, yeah, and like you said, like you dedicated to writing. Sometimes you can tell, like, okay, this guy did one draft. Like, you know, a lot of the stuff I was sending out in 2004, like, you know, that wouldn't have made it past your, you know, your slush pile or whatever. And like, all right, quick, you know, response.
Yeah. So then after that initial reading, then I, you know, put it in if it makes that cut, then I'll just, I don't know, just sometime during the day I'll just read like one submission and then, you know, spend time with that one instead of going through like one after the other. And if there's any questions, then I send it to other people and ask them what they think about it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I just don't understand what's going on and I have to get help. You know?
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, I think other readers is always helpful. Do you want to read something of yours?
Sure.
Read a poem or something?
Sure. I have it. Can I read my novel? All right. An ornithologist, a pederast, some locusts. In the park, when the sun came out, it seemed to be a thin, crisp cracker, unequaled in verdancy, brilliant as biscuits, patterned with small, rounded figures. The daisy tufts, mole hills, people reading on blankets. This is enough, I thought, but then quickly, why isn't this enough? An ornithologist, a pederast, some locusts, they were all there in the park, in the sun, bejeweled by its light, held fast and warm in the common glory of its thin gelatin, all of us living right here, right now.
So with all these submissions that you're getting all the time, and having a 9-year-old and having a job, when do you find time to work on your own stuff?
I get up early in the morning and write every day. Like, it's like a discipline for me. So when I'm doing landscape construction or something like that, I usually start that at 7 and then I get up at 4:30.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's brutal.
Yeah.
When I'm not working, because I also manage apartments, and so I'm kind of like a part-time worker, if you will. Then I get up before my daughter has to go to school, so it's more like 6:30.
Yeah.
So that's sleeping in for me. That's pretty good, though.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that. Today I got up at 5 to write before catching the bus at 6:30, and at 3:00 I was sitting in a meeting and I was ready to fall asleep. And right now it's 7:15 and I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna be in bed at 9:00 tonight. So I can't imagine doing that every day, especially if you're going. And so construction, I'm assuming that's pretty physically demanding.
It can be
type work.
It can be, yeah.
Like, were you trained in that, or is that something you kind of picked up?
No, it's just from like the vagabond days. Like it's just something that you can kind of pick up yourself. I feel like.
Yeah. So, and well, I guess being apartment manager, like, pretty handy, I would assume.
I'm so handy. I'm so handy.
Yeah. Well, that's a long tradition of, writers who, know a trade that they can, always, I guess, fall back on.
Yeah. I prefer to be outside of the academy too, I think. And I've taught I've never taught writing necessarily, but I taught English in Taiwan for a year, and that was nice. I liked it. I think teaching's great, but I feel like, I don't know, there's something to what's the word? I mean, it's laughable to say that it's utopian, but it feels like separated from like the general population. Unless you're, I mean, I'm speaking now about teaching in like an MFA program. I'm not talking about like teaching in a high school or something like that.
Right.
Where you're in the fire.
Yeah.
So it feels good to be like out in the, unfortunately, like mostly I'm out in the suburbs, so that also doesn't feel very real.
Yeah.
Feels a little put on.
Well, just speaking of, what you said, I'm curious, have you read Ryan Boudernot's thing that's been all over the internet the past couple days?
No, I haven't read it, but I've been in conversations with people about it, and so they've been telling me about it.
Yeah,
I should read it.
It's been, everybody's got an opinion about it. I should say, Ryan Boudernot, he was the very first guest on this podcast. He's been on it before. I have my opinions about what he said. I don't know. Do you? Because I'm assuming you don't have an MFA.
I do not. I went for a year to Naropa though in Boulder, but I found it. It wasn't for me. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that's how most people feel. I don't have an MFA. Mm-hmm. Something in the back of my mind I think about occasionally, but I'm sure I'll never. Plus, I don't have $15,000 or whatever it would take.
Yeah, well, that's what I was gonna say. If someone will pay you to get your MFA, you might as well do it.
Right.
Because it's like it's almost like getting a residency. If you're getting paid.
Yeah.
But if you're going into debt for it, that's another story.
Yeah.
I don't like being in debt.
No.
It drives me crazy.
No. Yeah, but so it sounded like what you were saying, and correct me if I am putting words in your mouth, but you actually prefer to not have your 9 to 5 or whatever be a writing job. Is that fair to say? Or
well, I would love if all I could do was write and got paid to write. Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay. Well, but
I don't want to necessarily. Teaching writing seems. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. It's not for me. Like, I'm sure some people find it really fruitful to be workshopping undergrad poems or grad student poems, and then maybe that informs their work, or they're able to somehow use that. But that I prefer to look at other conversations and draw from more contrasting conversations, I think. Yeah.
What was your undergrad experience like? Were you an English major?
I went to Evergreen, so they you don't like major there. You kind of write your own curriculum.
Oh yeah.
But I did study small press and independent press publishing and the history of it, and then as well as I was obsessed with Russia at the time and the Russian novelists, so I took a year-long class that was just all about Russia and Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and Turgenev and all those guys. And then I did some theater work as well.
Right on. So, going to your last reading, I go to a lot of readings, and one of the reasons why, you're familiar is because we all run into each other at readings a lot, and I really enjoyed your the last PageBoy because there was a little bit of stand-up comedy in there. There was some music in there. There was the regular readings, and when you're putting together something like that, especially since I know you go to a lot of readings, are you kind of like thinking about entertaining, or like what's your thought process when you're putting something like that together, especially including comedians, which I thought was really entertaining because I didn't expect that when I went to it. And I thought they were both, super hilarious and entertaining. Is your goal like entertainment or literature or?
It's both. I feel like I like as an MC, because I always MC like the events too, and I try to like in that context I try to be entertaining. And I try to sort of be a release valve for the poets who can, they can come across like whether they're good or bad or beautiful or funny, it still can be weighted. It can be heavy, I think.
Yeah.
And so my role, the way I see it, is to allow for people to sort of sigh, like between readers. And then with the comedy, like I've been kind of obsessed with comedy the last couple of years as just as another way of using language. And I'm really interested in the way comedians use language as opposed to the way poets and writers use language. And I like to just set those two next to each other and let people look at it.
Yeah.
Because it's fascinating to me. I hope it's fascinating to other people. But it's really interesting to me. Because a lot of stand-up shows feel like you could be at a poetry reading, but the goal, it seems like, at those events is different than at a poetry event. All the faces could be the same, the structure, everything looks the same, but the language is after a different thing than it is at a poetry reading.
So if the goal at a comedy show is to make the audience laugh, what's the goal at a poetry reading?
Well, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe to move people. I mean, laughter can move people as well, but
yeah,
it seems like movement. People are after movement. I think at its best, maybe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
A poet wants to move.
Yeah.
The audience, in whichever direction.
Yeah, as as somebody, you're a fan of stand-up comedy. Seeing you read, there's humor involved. Is stand-up something you're ever you're ever considering pursuing, or?
I don't think so.
No.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah. Well, I think one
there's too much money in that.
Well, one of the last times I ran into you were on your way up to Jai Tai to go see some.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. That's true.
So you're more comfortable in the audience. I hope this mic isn't picking up the vacuum right now,
cleaner.
But I don't think it is.
I'm just fascinated by even when because that Jai Tai thing. One time I went there and I think it was like 70 comics. They all got 2 minutes.
Oh wow!
So it was just like bam, 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 and some of them were horrible, and a few of them were great. But even when the comedians were horrible, it was still really interesting to me at how they dealt with failing. Like they can tell that they're failing.
Yeah.
Like, it's really easy, I think, for comedians to know that they're failing because they don't hear laughter or see laughter.
Well, and I think as in Seattle, at least, the audience at a poetry reading wants you to succeed. And even if somebody goes up there and they're monotone and they're boring, when they're done, the audience is going to clap. They're going to say, did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in a comedy club, if you're bombing, you don't
You
get...
know it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think the audience is as forgiving as they would be.
No. They'll probably clap at the end, but they won't fake laugh, I don't think.
Yeah.
Unless it's your mother.
Yeah.
Maybe she will. I think my mom would fake laugh for me. I hope so.
Yeah.
That's what mothers are for.
Right. So not something you pursue, because I when you opened up the last...
Do you think I should?
I thought you the way you opened the last PageBoy thing.
Yeah.
As somebody who wasn't that familiar with your reading, I felt trolled for a second, because when you started, I was like, I believed what you were saying, and then somewhere around I was like, oh, everything he's saying right now, because at one point you were like, oh yeah, PageBoy being nominated the best journal at AWP, and I was like, wow, I hadn't heard that. I was like, that's pretty cool. And then you know, and then there was like the punchline, and then you know, the stuff about finding, like, I guess I knew that was on its way to being a joke, but you know, it was clearly written as a humorous piece, I think.
Yes.
You know, you bring that to us an open mic.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah. I'll work on that.
Yeah. Well, no, and I think stand-up is probably one of the most terrifying art forms you can, you know, because, you know, you see good stand-up and a good stand-up makes it look easy, but then like you go to Jai Tai and you see some of these people are just starting out, and it's just like, that is not easy, and I would, you know, like, imagine like bombing in there, I'd run home, cover myself in blankets, and like not leave the house.
I'm bombed at Jai Tai!
Well, here, do you want to read us another poem?
Sure. It's not very funny. Unfortunately. Beck. A small brook, a creek, a rill on the side of a creek that branches off from the creek through the moss and the rocks beneath the curve of a branch that fell to the creek, over the creek where running salmon fill a pool. Dammed by logs and leaves and rocks, the rill it rills out of the pool, dammed by leaves and logs and rocks, through the moss and through the rocks, it clears the willow roots of soil, roots of ferns and roots of cedar, it clears the rocks of soil and clears the soil of rocks, laying waste or laying wash, the rill that rills over the creek that branches off from the creek, though hardly seems to wander or search, but takes and takes, it clears and takes, it has no need to look or seek, the rill that rills over the earth, takes and clears and washes and wastes, the earth of soil, dirt and muck, it spills the rill and wastes and takes and washes the earth, and offers the earth a washing as it spills and snakes and rills beside the creek, from the creek to the creek that takes, the rill that takes, that runs and rills and rushes and pools, then rills again over the earth, around the rocks, and washes and wastes.
Right on.
Sorry, that was a downer.
Oh, no. That's what, you know, you moved me. That's what poetry does. Maybe it doesn't always move you up. Sometimes it can move you down. So as somebody who's, you know, always reading, you know, these submissions and being a reader yourself, does that have any influence on when you're submitting, or are you somebody who submits fairly regularly, or?
Fairly irregularly.
Irregularly?
Yeah. But I recognize, like, it's been helpful, being an editor has been helpful to, I think, see the blatant mistakes that one can make when submitting one's work.
Is there a common blatant mistake that people should avoid? Is there a secret you can tell me?
Well,
so
you have to make sure the work is finished for sure. Like, that's a big one. Let's see what else. You have to read the guidelines. Like, that's a big one too. It's always nice to find out who you're sending to as well. That like, as superficial as that is, like, I feel like it personalizes it.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, I feel like those are 3 pretty simple ones that have nothing to do with, like, I mean, the work has to be solid, of course, but just from a correspondence, on a correspondence level, I feel like those are pitfalls that some people, or just things that people neglect.
Yeah.
And you can usually tell if someone's like just, I mean, sometimes it doesn't matter. Like the work has to be solid, but sometimes it doesn't matter. Like, you can tell that, like, someone's really young or something, and they haven't submitted a lot, and that maybe can be charming. The work still has to be really good, but yeah, I think there's like a professionalism, if you will, that needs to happen. Maybe not.
Yeah. Short cover letter. Thank you for reading my stuff.
Yeah, you have to read. You read so many submissions. An editor reads so many submissions that any, like, rudeness or arrogance can be really off-putting, because it's a lot of work, like, to read the submissions.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say about that.
Okay. Well, so this Saturday you're gonna do the release in Portland. Is it gonna be similar to what I saw in Seattle, like 2 weeks through a little while ago, or I'm assuming probably some different readers because you're in a different city?
Yeah, different readers. There'll be, so, Catherine Carlack, Ed Skoog, he read the Seattle one, Kevin Samsel, who's a Portland guy, Chris Ashby is a Portland guy, and then Janine Walker is coming down, and Bettina McKelvey, who's the comedian. She was one of the comedians in Seattle.
Yeah, I thought she was interesting because she did some kind of your typical stand-up and then kind of performance stand-up, I guess, or I don't know if that's an appropriate word, but a little more theatrical than your typical stand-up.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really funny.
Yeah, she's great. She's my neighbor, actually.
Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Is that how you guys met?
No, I manage apartments, so I sort of, she was looking for a place, and I was like, oh, you should move into the building that I manage. She did, but I've known her a long time, actually, maybe 10 years, before she was doing stand-up, and she just kind of started doing it recently, I think. I don't know, you'd have to ask her.
Yeah.
But I think like maybe 2 years ago she started.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, she's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, especially for only doing it 2 years. It seems like something like stand-up takes 5 years or, before you have that confidence.
I could be wrong. She could have been like doing it like in her closet or something for a while.
True.
She might have a podcast even.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Well, I think with stand-up, though, another thing about stand-up that makes it so much different, at least with poetry, you can spend 5 years sitting at your kitchen table by yourself failing, and you're the only one who knows that.
Yeah.
But at stand-up, you basically have to, it's like, imagine writing the very first poem you wrote, you said it to 50 people on a stage, like, I couldn't imagine some of the awful stuff that I've written on my own and then just thrown away that nobody ever saw.
Yeah.
That, you'd have to share with an audience. But yeah, that sounds cool. So where is it on Saturday?
It's at Mother Foucault's. It's a beautiful bookshop on Morrison in Southeast. It's really cool.
Right on.
Yeah.
And then are submissions open right now if anybody wants to submit?
They are always open.
Oh, right on. And that's if you go to PageBoyMagazine.blogspot.com, you'll get the info there, and make sure you read the guidelines.
Boom.
Because, editors don't like that.
Uh-huh. Prickly.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't be rude. But cool. Thanks a lot, Thomas.
Yeah, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, check out PageBoy.